Alright, so markets tried to find their footing yesterday, and honestly, geopolitics was running the whole show. Hey everyone, it's Friday morning, April 3rd, and welcome back to Capital Markets Quickie. I'm your host, Endrit Sella, here to break down yesterday's market action in just 2 minutes. Quick note before we dive in. Today's episode is brought to you by AMF Capital, Asset Management Frankfurt. Learn more about our funds and strategies at amf-capital.de. Alright, let's get started. So let's break it down. U.S. stocks actually opened lower yesterday after some pretty aggressive rhetoric from President Trump, who signaled a potential escalation in the conflict with Iran. That initially spooked markets, especially with no clear timeline for de-escalation. But then, and this is where things flipped, Iran's deputy foreign minister came out and said they're working with Oman on a protocol to manage traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. And just like that, sentiment improved. Now, why does that matter? Well, the Strait of Hormuz is absolutely critical for global energy flows. So any sign that it stays open, markets breathe. Looking at the numbers, the Dow Jones Industrial Average ended slightly lower, down 0.1%, but it had been down more than 1% earlier in the session. The Standard & Poor's 500 edged up 0.1%, and the Nasdaq Composite also closed higher by 0.1%. So, not a huge rally, but definitely a recovery. Meanwhile, oil remains the big story here. Since the conflict started in late February, Brent crude has surged roughly 50%. Yesterday alone, U.S. benchmark oil jumped 11% to above $111 per barrel, while Brent crude rose 6% to above $108. That's a massive move, and a clear reminder of how sensitive energy markets are right now. On the macro side, we got a bit of positive data. Initial jobless claims came in lower, falling by 9,000 to 202,000, so the labor market still looks pretty resilient. And now, all eyes are on today's March jobs report. That's going to be the next big catalyst. So yeah, markets are still walking a tightrope between geopolitics and macro data. Alright, that wraps up today's Capital Markets Quickie. Join me again next week for more market updates. See you then.